Okay, so we're on the home stretch now. Thanks for hanging in there. Hopefully you've got a lot of great tips on how to improve your website so far. This last section is a little bit more into the area of security and maintaining security. And I find that this is actually a little bit more interesting and also more important than everything else, because if this is not in place, if you don't have proper security measures in place for your website, then everything else you do could possibly just fall over. And if you don't have a website because it's been hacked, then it doesn't matter how good your copy is and how many great calls to actions you've got, and people will come to your website and it just won't work for them. So this section here is vitally important. That's why I kept it at the end, because I want this to be fresh in your mind, and obviously for you to go back and really look at your processes and systems and how you look after your website, and putting assumptions in that you think are there but you just haven't checked. Let's get into this. I'm going to be covering again another 3 areas. So this is 7, 8, 9 component of the top 10 things every website needs for better performance and security. So maintenance and security, number 3, is vitally important for your website. And in this section I'm going to cover 3 areas. And the first one is software updates and backups. Number 8 is username and passwords. Number 9 is SSL Certificate. Okay, so we'll go into a little bit more detail on each of these. Let's do it. Alrighty, so software updates and backups. Now, caveat here, or I might just note, if you're running a website on WordPress, which is pretty popular, or any of the other content management systems such as Joomla, Magento, Drupal, there's a whole bunch of them, and then this pretty much primarily is for you. If you've got a website that's hosted on, say, Wix or Squarespace or some other content management system and they look after everything for you, all the security and all the backups, then most of this doesn't apply to you, but it still does apply to you for backups. Okay, you still need to have backups of the website, and I'll go into a little bit more detail on that, but it's very, very important. Okay, so if you're running WordPress, for example, and any other platform, then running software updates on a regular basis when required is a must. Okay, so again, we look after quite a lot of sites for our clients, and running website like software updates is the core thing that we do. And the reason why we do that is for security reasons. So if the software isn't up to date, then it's going to potentially be hacked, and then the website's going to be gone. So that's why we keep our software up to date. That's why you keep your computer software up to date or your phone software up to date. It also helps with better features and helps to improve things as well. So there's not only just the security aspect, but also the functionality aspect as well. So run regular software updates when required. Okay, so really important to do this. I can't stress it enough. And then that leads into the second point, which is ensure to make backups of your website and store a copy offline. Okay, so now most people are under the assumption that their host, okay, you've got your website hosted somewhere, is taking backups of the website. And that is true in some cases. In most cases, they do take backups, but they might be limited in what they backed up. And also they might, they might have a corruption or some system issue with their hosting backups that you don't know about, and they may not know about until it actually happens. So that's why having backups and storing your own version of a backup offline is really important. I like to think that you need 3 areas of backups of your website. Okay, so you'll have the host itself, so that's one. So you have a copy of your website on your host, and then you have another backup stored offline, but in a cloud service such as Google Drive. We use Amazon AWS S3 storage, which is a cloud hosting service provider where we just send our backups there, and all our clients as well. And also a local copy on a hard drive that's connected to our computer. Okay, so you've got 3 points of backups. So if any one of those fail, then at least you've got another one on, you've got another one somewhere else. So you're pretty much covered. So it's really important though to have backups of your website. You don't want to be putting all this time and money into building a website and make it amazing, start generating leads and getting sales and creating a life from this amazing thing, and suddenly it just goes away suddenly, and then you don't have a backup. It's like, what's the worst possible outcome there? And so it's really important to have backups, incredibly important. Okay, so even if you've got your website hosted on a system like Wix or Squarespace or somewhere else, make sure you also take a backup of you export your content out of there as well, and make sure you've got a backup of that, because who knows, we don't really have control over those platforms, so anything could happen. They could disappear overnight. Not that they will, they're huge, but it's possible. And that's why I always suggest to use WordPress, because you're self-hosting your site, you have 100% ownership of it, and you're not relying on a company to stay solvent for your livelihood. Anyway, that's just my opinion, but there are some great benefits in other platforms as well. But the point is, make backups, okay? And make sure you got backups of everything of your website. And lastly, check your website after a software update and check the backup file is not corrupt. So when you do a software update, always check your website. Go over the functionality testing that we went through earlier, and go through the process. Make sure that everything works as it should. And if you do notice any problems, you can always roll back to a backup. This is something I probably should mention first, is that before you do a software update, take a backup first. So if something does break, you can always roll it back to the previous version of the backup, and then you can solve the problem or get somebody to help you solve the problem. So that is that. That's essential. So I really, really encourage you to make sure that you do your software updates and run backups on a regular basis. Okay? Good. Okay, the next one is username and passwords. Now, it's getting a little bit more challenging now, because we've got so many passwords that we need to remember, and they're getting longer because we need to have them more secure, and it gets a little bit of a pain in the butt when we start having to manage all these passwords online. So there are some really cool tools out there, and I'll bring up a screenshot of things that you should never do first. So big X there, never give your passwords to people you don't know. Okay, so never give your direct administration email to somebody you don't know. Okay, and yeah, this is really important. Okay, you got to trust the person that you're giving your admin details to, but you should never really do it. And if you're running a website on a platform, then just add them as a user and give them limited access. Okay, depending on what they're doing on the site. So it really depends on the level of user that you give them, but don't give them your personal username and password. Create a user for that person first, and then give them the details. Okay, so don't give them yours, because then you can always go back in and remove them at a later stage as well. Okay, so but yeah, never give your passwords to people you don't know. It's just a general rule, common sense. You do that for everything else. Never give your PIN number to somebody you don't know either. Okay, so never use the words admin and password as standard logins. Okay, so don't use admin as your admin username and password as your password. That's just basic stuff, but people still do it, and they're not I'm not surprised that they get hacked. So always make sure that the username and password are strong, and have a few numbers and letters and characters in both the username and password, and then you're good. And the password should be at least 9 to 12 characters long, and because it's getting a little bit more interesting with that. So yeah. Now, with those long passwords, you're going to want to manage them and not have to remember them. So here's some really good services that you can use to store all your browser-based username and passwords, especially and also for your website as well. So the very top one that you see there is LastPass, and it's just a great tool. I use this personally for all my password management, and then you can assign passwords and users to different websites, and they don't see the password. So then you can have greater control over user management and user access to a lot of assets without them seeing like a main password. So it's really, really, really neat. And then this also goes across all your devices, like your mobile phone and everything as well. So it's really great. And the other one underneath is similar, called 1Password. Does the same thing, stores all your passwords in the cloud. So yeah, so that's essentially that section. So username and password. So never give people your passwords. Never use the words admin, password, or standard logins, and use a service like LastPass or 1Pass. They do have free accounts, so you can definitely set it up and start. Alrighty, so the last one is SSL Certificate. Now, yes, this is really quite important. So as you can see in the picture there, very, very basic, but if you don't have an SSL certificate, you're not going to have a little green lock like that and a little HTTPS. Okay, so if you go to your website and it doesn't have anything, like you can't see a lock and you can't see any green HTTPS at the beginning of it, it means that your site is not running through a secure connection to the server. Okay, so what's happened now is that Google it's now a very slight or very weak ranking factor, but having a secure website like with SSL is really important now. It builds trust, but it's also the aim to create an encrypted web, okay, so making the web safer. So Google's really pushing this out. You may have probably received emails from everybody saying that this is really important. It is really important. I'm not being a salesperson here, but it's actually really important if you're running a website that sells products, taking credit cards, payments, having user logins, all that stuff. It's really important because essentially what an SSL does is it encrypts the data that is sent from the website to the server that the website's sitting on. Okay, so when you go to a secure website, you go to log in, you put in your username and password, right? So that data then gets sent from the browser to the server to confirm that that is correct, and then bounces back and says, yep, you're good, and then opens you up. So that encryption, that transfer of data is unencrypted if it's not an SSL, if you don't have an SSL certificate. So there are different types of SSL certificates to get. The most easiest one to have is a Let's Encrypt SSL certificate. Not all hosts provide support for it, not all the big ones anyway, like GoDaddy and Crazy Domains, but a lot of other reputable hosts, they have that included in their hosting bundles, and it's just really great. So I really highly encourage you to first ask your host if they do have Let's Encrypt. It's completely free, 100%. It's really great. So and it gives you that added extra protection as well. Yeah, and so that's pretty much it, really. There are other different types of SSL certificates. You can get an extended validation email. So what this does is that you might have seen where you go to something like apple.com or PayPal or a bank or something like that. You'll see the actual name of the bank in the URL address bar or just before the URL, and it's in green. That just means that they're running an extended validated SSL certificate, which means that they've gone through a process of being thoroughly recognized as that they solely own that domain name and that they run through that server. Okay, so it's really it's just it's a lot more money to pay for those. But yeah, if you're really big, then one of those would probably be really great for you. So actually, I should probably go through the benefits. So the benefits of an SSL certificate is it protects the website visitor. It's a Google ranking factor, and it creates trust as well. Okay, another trust factor. So that ends that particular section. So we're now going to move on to the final 10th item in our series, and we'll do that right now.